I'm Lucas, a 21-year-old college graduate who recently secured a job through campus placement. Last night, I had a night shift that ended around 12 a.m. After wrapping up my work, I left the office and headed to the railway station using my bicycle. Upon reaching the station, I noticed something unusual. The display board didn't show the name and schedule of the arriving train as it usually did. I was puzzled and looked around, only to realize that darkness had suddenly engulfed the station, and there were no announcements being made. Nonetheless, I decided to wait on the platform for my train. As minutes turned into what felt like hours, I became increasingly anxious. The train should have arrived by now, but there was no indication of it on the board, and no announcements were being made. I started to worry. In a state of panic, I reached for my phone to contact my friend, hoping they could help me out. To my dismay, my mobile network had stopped working. Frustration set in, and I made a quick decision to head to the control room of the mobile tower in search of answers. Inside the tower, I tried to establish contact with my friend but received no response. Doubt crept in about the accuracy of the information my father had provided. I stepped out of the tower, scanning my surroundings for any sign of help or information. Suddenly, the train slowed down and came to a halt at the station. In my panicked state, I didn't waste any time and boarded the train immediately. I checked the time. It was 1:45 p.m. The train appeared to be facing technical difficulties, just like the station. There were no display screens for station names or any announcements. My worry intensified. Desperate for answers, I decided to use the GPS on my phone to check my location. To my shock, the GPS showed that I was in an unknown place with no nearby landmarks or stations. I attempted to call my father again, but the call disconnected due to the lack of network. My heart pounded as I made the decision to head back toward the station and search for any signs of help. Retracing my steps, I noticed a large signboard, possibly indicating the name of the station. I used my torch to illuminate the sign, and as soon as I saw it, a shiver ran down my spine. Now, I found myself in a situation that seemed impossible to escape. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something eerie was happening around me. The journey I had embarked on had taken a nightmarish turn, and I was trapped in a surreal and unsettling place. As I tried to make sense of my surroundings and what had transpired, a man suddenly appeared, taking me by surprise. I instinctively protested, "No, please, I don't want to go there." But the man merely smiled, and then, inexplicably, his face began to change, morphing into the same man who had been standing there moments ago. He shouted, and I started running as if I were being chased by a ghost. The sound of his footsteps echoed ominously in the darkness. With no other way out, I jumped back into the train and hid under a seat. My entire body was drenched in sweat, and I couldn't stop trembling with fear. My mind was so preoccupied that I felt like I could faint at any moment. After what felt like an eternity, the train started moving again. This might be my only chance to escape. I quietly made my way to the train's emergency room, desperate for refuge. A train staff member found me there and asked with concern, "Now, how do you feel, sir?" I was still in shock and had lost consciousness. The train staff members had brought me to this room, and I couldn't believe that I had finally returned to some semblance of safety. Desperate to reassure my worried father, I asked them, "Please, call my father. My phone's battery died, but I've charged it now." I dialed my father's number, and he answered in a worried tone, "Hello, where were you, dear?" I was so worried. "It's been 3 hours, and you still haven't returned." "Dad, you know, right? I called you, but there was no signal." "What is she saying?" my father asked. I sent my location to my father, hoping he would understand the gravity of the situation. He arrived shortly and took me home. As we drove, I rejected a call from my college, which I had dialed almost 10 times in the last 3 hours. Strangely, I hadn't received a single response. I was left with a multitude of unanswered questions and a feeling of unease that lingered. I couldn't help but wonder who had called from my phone when I was unconscious and why. For now, I just wanted to consider last night's events as a bad dream. However, as I glanced back, I noticed the same eerie man from last night following our car closely, and my unease deepened.